What's up, true Zoinked Warriors? It is I, Taylor, from Merlock, here today to talk to you about the influences on our most recent single, Onward Strides Colossus. It is the first single on our upcoming album, also called Onward Strides Colossus. It is due out February 24th. So if that sounds groovy to you, strap in, crank your mids, and let's destroy the big riff industry. So a little bit about the history of this song, because this song is a really special song on this record. It was the last song we wrote, and we wrote it within the last 2 months or so before we went into the studio to record it. So we had always had this one song that we still perform on and off to this day that we call Gorb. It's a nonsense name, just kind of this creature we've created in our heads in our bizarre Merlock lore universe. And it's this really powerful, sludgy song that has this cool black metal interlude in the middle, and then it goes into this big, giant chorus-like type ending that has a cool solo. We've always really loved the song, but it's never fit on any of the albums. It didn't make it onto That Which Speaks, it didn't make it onto You Cannot Be Saved, and now it has not made it onto Onward Strides Colossus. So about 2 months before we went into the studio, we recorded at the Unknown in Anacortes, Washington, this really beautiful island. We recorded in this cool old church. We decided to really give it everything we had and write a proper finisher for this album. It was a really intense writing process. There was a lot of pressure on us to get this done, not only to write the song, but also to be able to perform it in the studio. So we had this immense pressure going into this songwriting process. So the first riff was written by our bass player, Andrew. It's this really rad Black Sabbath style riff, and it gradually builds in tension. And the scale tones we're using are really intense and build this kind of tense, off-kilter feeling. There's no real resolution to the riff until we bring in this second time signature. So in the second half of the riff, we start adding a beat onto the riff. And it gives this really unsettling, tense, ominous feeling throughout the riff. On top of which I'm doing these kind of Neurosis-style vocals, these kind of Steve Von Till-style vocals, almost this throat singing that low in the throat, to kind of create this monstrous, colossal vibe. So that riff goes like this. Pretty simple, and that riff drags on and creates a lot of tension until in the next section where it breaks free. So when I was first writing this riff, obviously I'm biting real hard on Dragonaut here, but I wanted to have an explosive section. We spend so much time in that first riff building tension. Something needs to happen here that explodes. Sleep is very good at that. So I was playing around with this Dragonauty style riff. And when I first wrote it, it was very derivative. It's still pretty derivative, but it was way too close. Eventually, I started playing around with some more chord inversions, some different tonalities, not just the simple power chord structure that Matt Pike is using in there, and eventually came up with something that's still pretty derivative, but also very Merlock. And it goes like this. So that's part one of this ecstatic transition. That leads into this long winding riff. I do a lot of long winding riffs on this record that are, they're the same riff, but there's multiple parts and subparts in that mastodon-y style. And over the top of it, I'm doing what I consider to be these Manila Road style vocals, these really traditional heavy metal vocals. I wanted it to be this flight of Icarus moment, this elevated state before the song comes crashing down. So that riff goes like this. So we repeat that a few times. I do some like high, Mark the Shark style vocals, start singing about event horizons, electric owls, aether, all that good stuff, before we come crashing down into what we internally think of as a sort of inversion of the first riff. It's not an inversion in like a musical sense, just kind of in our internal band lingo. That's how we think about it. So this ending riff, very simple. It starts off a little dour and then it builds up and then it ends in a crashing kind of cough-esque riff. But it's all the same chord structure, it's just the rhythmic variations throughout it. So it starts off very similar to the first riff. And then it goes into a faster variation of that. And then we go into like a slow, very crushing version. Because E minor is the best chord to end on. Except this is a C minor chord, because I play in C standard. So that was a quick riff breakdown from our new song, Onward Strides Colossus. If you dug this style of content, make sure you give us a like and follow. And if you want to hear more of the song, it's streaming on Spotify, Bandcamp, and we have a couple more playthroughs on our YouTube channel. They should pop up after this. So, until next time, stay zoinked, crank your mids, and destroy the big riff industry.